This is my audience. Okay.
You know where
We're fine. Close your eyes and think of iconic Hollywood themes such as those from Jurassic Park, Jaws, and Star Wars. You may be asking yourself what all of these movies have in common. All of these movies feature solos from the French horn. These solos have become iconic pieces of Hollywood history, however, no one seems to know what this iconic instrument is. It is called the French horn, however, its roots are mostly in Germany. Tonight I will guide you through the key moments of the horn's journey, beginning as the humble hunting horn to the natural horn, and then finally to the Hollywood instrument we have today. Let's begin with the Horn and F's humble beginning. During the Middle Ages, there was three kinds of horns. You had the cow horn, military horn, and the bugle. The cow horn was the most common, and it was made out of a buffalo horn, and it was used in hunting practices to signal any sort of attack on the animal. The military horn was made out of metal, and it was as tall as a man, and it was used to signal cues to the army when to attack and when to retreat. This is where the name French horn comes from, because in France they used different sized horns in order to create sequences of sounds to create a command list. And then finally you had the bugle, which was the most common, and it was the smallest as well, and it was used by shepherds and in the military to signal any sort of communication. And the idea of the military horn influenced the horn's entrance into medieval orchestras. However, it wasn't common until coiling came into practice in the 12th century. This signaled the introduction of the natural horn. Joseph Hamel lived in Prague. However, he was most famous for being a German hornist. In 1973, he invented the idea of stopping the horn, which is the motion of closing the bell or the instrument where the area where the metal comes out and the sound comes out. So you would close your hand in order to create different pitches. This reduced the shrillness of the horn and created the ability to make more notes. In 1754, he created crooks, which were attachments that you put where your mouth goes, and it was twisted pipes that would transpose the instrument into different keys. These crooks inspired composers such as Mozart to create horn-based orchestras. And this led to the natural horn being leaps and bounds ahead of the primitive hunting horn. However, the horn's true potential wasn't unlocked until about half a century later. This is when the modern horn came into play. In 1814, Heinrich Strozl invented the first valved horn. This valved horn was at first rejected because it dampened the horn's sound. However, eventually Schumann began writing for this instrument. Our modern horn uses rotors, which was developed in 1850, and that's the use of metal and string in order to open and close tubes to make the instrument longer or shorter. And in 1900, the double horn was developed, and in 1960, the triple horn was developed. These were the making of a horn where you combine the tubing of two different instruments in order to create a more versatile instrument. This influenced the horn's entrance into the movie scene. In movies, horns are used to invoke power, pride, and passion. In conclusion, we have reviewed the journey of the horn as it progressed from its primitive state as a hunting horn into the glamorous horn that it is today. The face of Hollywood has been shaped through the forgotten instrument. In the words of the International Horn Society President Jeff Nelson, there is nothing more pensive or thought-provoking than a solo horn playing. It just clears the landscape around the horizon.